When I was a kid, life was simple. Dusty streets, wooden houses, and long summer days that seemed to never end. We didn't have gadgets or big toys. Our world was made of small things. Bottle caps, sticks, marbles, and stories whispered under the glow of streetlights. Our house stood at the end of a narrow road, surrounded by tall mango trees, their branches twisted like old, tired arms reaching up to the sky. To me, those trees were everything. My castle, my secret hideout, my entire world. At 10 years old, I didn't know much about fear. Ghosts were just stories told by grown-ups to stop us from staying out too late. But everything changed one night. The night I saw her. It was a warm evening and the air smelled of dust and ripe mangoes. My friends and I were playing tag beneath the trees, our laughter echoing down the street. The sun had almost set, painting the sky orange and purple. "Last one to touch the tree is E.T.," someone shouted. We ran, laughing and shouting, our bare feet kicking up the dry earth. Then, suddenly, I stopped. I don't know why. Maybe it was the sudden chill in the air, or maybe it was instinct, but something felt wrong. The night was too still. The laughter around me sounded far away, like it was coming from another world. That's when I looked up and I saw her. High on one of the branches sat a girl. She looked about 12, maybe a little older than me. She wore a white dress, clean and spotless, glowing faintly under the dim streetlight. Her long black hair hung loose over her shoulders, swaying gently in the wind. For a second, I thought she was just another kid, maybe someone who climbed up there to pick mangoes. But then, I realized what was wrong. She had no face. Her skin was smooth and pale where her eyes, nose and mouth should have been, like someone had wiped them away. She sat quietly, one hand brushing her long hair, her legs swinging slowly back and forth. I couldn't move. My body froze. I just stared up at her, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. She wasn't looking at me. Her head was tilted slightly, as if she was watching my friends, listening. My throat went dry. I tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come out. "What are you looking at?" my friend Mark asked, nudging me. I pointed up at the tree. My voice trembled. "That girl, the one sitting there." They all turned to look, but their faces stayed blank. "There's no one there," Mark said, frowning. "Yes, there is," I shouted. "She's right there." Before I could finish, they laughed nervously and ran off toward the street, but she was still there, still stroking her hair, still swinging her legs. "Come inside." My Yaya, our old nanny, shouted from the doorway. Her voice was sharp, urgent. I turned to her, and in that second, I made the mistake of looking back. The faceless girl had turned her head. Now she was facing me. Even without eyes, I knew she was watching. I ran. I didn't stop until I was inside the house. The door slammed shut behind me. My heart felt like it would burst. Yaya grabbed my shoulders. "What happened?" she asked, her voice shaking. "I saw a girl in the mango tree," I said, still gasping for breath. "She was wearing white. She had no face." For a moment, Yaya just stared at me. Then the color drained from her face. She made the sign of the cross and whispered something under her breath. "It's nothing," she said quickly, forcing a smile. "Just your imagination. Don't talk about it again." But I could tell she was scared. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time the wind rustled the leaves outside, I imagined her there, sitting on the branch, head tilted, waiting. Later, I heard voices from the next room. My parents were talking to Yaya. "She saw her," Yaya whispered. "The girl in the tree." My mom's voice trembled. "Don't say that, not in front of the kids." "What's happening?" I asked, stepping into the room. They turned to me, startled. My dad forced a smile. "Nothing, son, just the shadows. You were probably tired." But I knew they were lying. Days passed. I avoided the trees, even during the day. But at night, I sometimes thought I could feel her, watching from the darkness outside. Years went by. We moved to another city. I grew up, went to college, got busy with life. The memory faded a little, but never completely. Then one day, I came home for the holidays. My brother and I were sitting on the porch, talking late into the night. Out of nowhere, he said quietly, "Do you remember the mango trees?" I froze. "Of course," I said carefully. "Why?" He looked down at his hands. "Did you ever see something there?" My heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" He looked at me, eyes wide. "A girl, in a white dress." I felt my stomach drop. "You saw her too?" He nodded slowly. "When I was around your age, she was sitting on the middle tree branch, brushing her hair. I thought it was just me, until I told Dad." "What did he say?" "He told me never to talk about it again. He said, she only shows herself to the children of the house." I stared at him. The air suddenly felt heavy. "Did she ever move?" I asked. He hesitated. "No. But once, when I was alone in the yard, I thought I heard her laugh. A soft, hollow laugh, like it came from somewhere deep inside the tree. The mango trees are gone now. The land where our house stood has been turned into a parking lot and a small convenience store. But every time I visit, I can still feel it. That strange silence that falls just before the sun sets. Sometimes, when the wind blows through the empty space where the trees once stood, I swear I hear the faint sound of leaves rustling, like someone is still up there, brushing their hair. They say spirits attach themselves to places. But what if she wasn't tied to the trees at all? What if she was tied to us? The night before I left home again, I stood by the old lot, just staring into the dark. For a moment, I thought I saw movement, a flicker of white among the shadows. And then, I heard it, a faint, soft laugh, just like my brother described. I turned to leave, but something made me look back one last time. There she was, high above, in the dark outline of where the mango tree used to be. The faint shape of a girl in white. No face, no eyes, just watching. Maybe she never left. Maybe she's still waiting, and maybe she's watching you now. A few years ago, I experienced something that completely changed how I see the world. It happened in a small cottage near Tenby, Wales. I've always been curious about the paranormal. I used to read ghost stories, watch documentaries, even visit old buildings just to feel that strange energy. But there's a big difference between being interested in ghosts and actually living with one. This story begins in 2012, when I decided to rent a little cottage called Gwyneth's Rest. At first, it felt perfect. The cottage was small but beautiful. Stone walls covered in ivy, a tiny garden with wildflowers, and a view of the countryside that looked like a painting. The air was crisp, the nights were peaceful, and I thought I had found the quiet escape I'd always wanted. But almost from the very beginning, strange things started happening. The first thing I noticed was the cold spots. No matter how warm the day was, there were areas in the house where the air suddenly turned icy, especially near the old wooden staircase and by the fireplace. Then, small objects began to move. I'd leave my keys on the kitchen counter and later find them on the table by the window. A book I was reading would vanish from the nightstand and appear in the hallway. At first, I laughed it off. I told myself I was just being forgetful, but deep down, something didn't feel right. Then came the footsteps. Late at night, when the cottage was silent and the wind outside had died down, I would hear it. Slow, soft steps crossing the floor above me. But I lived alone. Sometimes, I'd climb the stairs, holding a flashlight, my heart pounding, or expecting to find someone. But every time, the rooms were empty. One night, I was lying in bed reading when I heard 3 loud knocks right above me on the wooden beam. It was so clear, so deliberate that I froze. At first, I thought maybe it was just the house settling, but then I heard something else. Something that made the hair on my arms stand up. A faint laugh. Soft, distant, almost childlike. It was gone as quickly as it came. But that sound, it stayed with me. Days turned into weeks and the strange activity grew stronger. Doors would creak open on their own. I'd hear whispers at night, not words, just the sound of someone trying to speak. And sometimes, when I passed the hallway mirror, I thought I saw movement behind me, a shape, a shadow, gone the moment I turned. I began to sleep with the lights on. Then came the night I'll never forget. It was a stormy evening in November. The wind was howling, rain beating hard against the windows. The power went out, plunging the cottage into total darkness. I fumbled for a candle and some matches, trying to stay calm. My hands were shaking. As soon as I lit the candle, I heard a crash. A picture frame from the mantelpiece had flown across the room and shattered against the wall. The candle flickered wildly, and that's when I saw her. She was standing near the window, a woman, glowing faintly, almost see-through. Her dress looked old, from another time, and her long hair floated as if underwater. But it was her face that froze me in place. She wasn't angry. She looked sad. So deeply, heartbreakingly sad. Her eyes were filled with something, grief, maybe regret. I couldn't tell. For a moment, she just stared at me. Then she slowly raised her hand, as if reaching out. That was enough. I bolted out of the cottage, running through the rain, not even stopping to grab my coat. I didn't look back. That night, I stayed at a nearby inn, unable to sleep, replaying the moment over and over again in my head. The next morning, when the storm had passed, I went back, but only to pack my things. While I was there, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. The wall where the picture frame had been had a faint mark. It looked like letters carved into the plaster. I brushed away the dust and could just make out a name. Gwyneth. After I moved out, curiosity got the better of me. I decided to look into the history of the cottage. What I found still gives me chills. The property records showed that in the late 1700s, a woman named Gwyneth Miles lived there. She was a widow, known in the village for her knowledge of herbs and healing. But in those days, people feared what they didn't understand. When several villagers fell sick, they blamed Gwyneth. They accused her of witchcraft. No one knows exactly how she died, but local records say she was taken from her home during a stormy night, the same time of year I saw her. Some say she was never buried properly. Others believe she took her own life in despair. After that, the house stood empty for decades. Over the years, many people who lived in that cottage reported strange things. Cold spots, footsteps, laughter. Some said they saw a woman in white by the window, looking out toward the hills, as if waiting for someone who never came. Locals believe she still haunts the place, trapped between worlds, reliving the night she died. Sometimes I wonder what she wanted that night. She didn't seem evil. She looked lonely. Maybe she just wanted to be seen, to be remembered. Even now, when storms roll in and the wind begins to howl, I sometimes wake up with that same uneasy feeling, as if she's near, watching, waiting. I've read about something called an intelligent haunting, when a spirit can interact, respond, even communicate. And I truly believe that's what this was. Not a replay of the past, not a ghost stuck in time, but a soul, aware, restless, and searching for peace. If you ever find yourself in Tenby and someone offers you a stay at Gwyneth's Rest, think twice. And if you do go and you hear 3 knocks above your bed, don't answer, because she's still there, still waiting. It all happened about 10 years ago, when my parents were leasing a large old house while they searched for a new home to buy. At the time, I was living in California, but I had come home to visit for a few weeks. The house was big and beautiful, the kind of place that looked perfect from the outside. Tall white walls, ivy climbing up the bricks, and a long wooden staircase that creaked under your feet. But like most old houses, it had a feeling. That strange, heavy silence that makes you feel like you're not completely alone. The first night I arrived, everything seemed fine. After a long day catching up with my family, I went to bed. The room I was sleeping in used to belong to the previous owner's children. but I didn't think much about it. I climbed into bed, pulled the covers over me, and then, ouch, something sharp stuck me in the leg. I sat up quickly and felt around under the sheets. My fingers touched something cold and metallic. It was an open safety pin, large, almost the size of one used for a diaper. I thought maybe it had been left there by mistake when the sheets were washed. So I closed it carefully and placed it on the nightstand beside me. Then I went to sleep without thinking twice. The next night, after dinner, I went back to my room. The house was quiet and everyone had gone to bed early. I slipped under the covers and froze. The sharp sting came again. I threw back the blanket, and there it was, the same safety pin, open again, lying right where I'd been sleeping. My heart started pounding. I was sure I had closed it. I looked around the room. Nothing seemed out of place, but something felt off. It was as if the air had grown heavier, colder. I picked up the pin again, shut it tight, and this time, I left it on the dresser across the room. Then I tried to sleep, though every creak of the house kept me awake. The next morning, I went to the kitchen and said half jokingly, "Okay, who's putting that safety pin in my bed?" Everyone stopped eating and just looked at each other. My mom frowned. My sister glanced at Dad. Nobody said a word at first. That silence said more than words ever could. Finally, I said, "Come on, seriously. Is someone trying to freak me out?" That's when my dad sighed and said, "Maybe it's time we tell you what's been happening here." One by one, my family began to share what they'd been experiencing. My father said he often heard the front door open and close late at night, followed by footsteps going down the hall or up the stairs. But when he checked, no one was there. My mother said she'd hear the door slam and then a voice, my sister's voice, calling, "I'm home!" But every time she went to check, my sister wasn't there at all. My brother, who lived in a small apartment over the garage, said he would hear the garage door opening and closing during the night when everyone was asleep. Sometimes he'd even hear footsteps coming up the stairs to his room, but nobody ever appeared. And my sister, she said she first knew something was wrong when she started hearing doors upstairs slamming open and shut in the middle of the night. At first, she thought it was the wind, but the windows were always closed. Eventually, she was so frightened that she moved in with a friend and refused to sleep in the house alone again. I listened, stunned. The safety pin didn't seem like a joke anymore. My parents decided to do a little investigating. They invited the neighbors, an attorney and his wife, over for dinner and casually brought up the house's history. The neighbors exchanged a knowing look. Then the wife said quietly, "Oh, you're in that house." She went on to explain that the previous owners had 2 small daughters, and those girls had been terrified of the upstairs bedrooms. They refused to sleep there and cried whenever they were left alone in that part of the house. No one ever explained why. It gave us chills. Meanwhile, my brother had done some research of his own. He discovered that the house had been built on old family cemetery grounds, the kind that were common in the 1800s. Some graves, he said, had probably been moved during construction, but maybe not all. After that, everything in the house seemed to escalate. Doors that were shut tight would open slowly by themselves. Objects would slide off tables when no one was near. Whispers, soft, echoing whispers, began to fill the hallways at night. Even my father, a practical man who didn't believe in ghosts, admitted that he once saw a shadow move across the wall when he was alone in the kitchen. And that safety pin, it kept appearing in strange places, sometimes on the stairs, once in the laundry basket, and once, unbelievably, inside my suitcase. It was as if something wanted me to notice it. The final straw came one evening, while my parents were in the living room. My mother saw a glass candle holder slide across the table all by itself. Mum screamed, and just then, they heard it again, footsteps running up the stairs, followed by a door slamming shut. But everyone was downstairs. That was it. My parents decided they'd had enough. They called the leasing company and made plans to move out immediately. As they were packing, my father went to lock the door that led from the garage into the house. That's when he saw it. Hanging on a nail by the door was a ring. It hadn't been there just minutes before. It was beautiful. A gold ring with a black star sapphire in the center, surrounded by tiny diamonds shaped like a crescent moon. No one in the family had ever seen it before. Dad picked it up carefully. "This wasn't here earlier," he said, his voice shaking. "It's like it just appeared." He swears the ring was left there by the ghost. After they moved out, my parents had the ring appraised. It turned out to be made from 18 or 20 karat gold, crafted around the turn of the century. The jeweler confirmed that the sapphire was genuine and of high quality, and the diamonds were real. Its estimated value? About $1,200. No hallmark, no engraving, no explanation, just a mysterious, priceless ring that appeared out of thin air the night before they left the haunted house. Sometimes I wonder who left it for us. Was it one of the little girls who refused to stay upstairs? Or maybe someone buried beneath the house long ago, trying to leave behind one last gift? Whatever the truth is, one thing is certain: that house was haunted, and the spirit there wanted to be remembered. Every time I look at that ring and see the faint shimmer of the sapphire, I can't help but think, maybe it's still watching, maybe it's still waiting, and maybe, just maybe, it left that ring as a thank you for finally listening.